because I think it's going to greatly intensify the differences, not only between races, because women are involved in the whole question of affirmative action. So it's going to create tensions and animosity that should not take place.
What do UAW do as far as women progressive? I do Olga Madar and Desic, and people like that. How successful have you been on the idea of gender?
Well, maybe not, haven't done as well as we should have done, and we started late. And we have many more women on the staff now. And then on one side, I think that's where you start, so that the women in the shops and in the offices where we have organization can see them as role models. The difficulty was, and I'm not making excuses, but the whole pattern of life in America was that the woman was a homemaker and a wife, and so she wound up with two jobs in the workplace. Then she went home and did what they called the wifely duties, and the husbands in that world didn't share those responsibilities as you sometimes do now. So a woman couldn't become active in the union. She's too busy taking care of her dual duties. Well, now that's changed. There's a whole sea change there. I went to a women's conference, UAW conference, up at Black Lake. I've gone there for 3 consecutive years. There's about 350 women up there who are either leaders in their local unions or want to be leaders in their local unions. And so I see this transformation, more and more women. But it's coming much slower than I think either you or I would like to see it come.
Now, I heard Secretary of Labor Reich say you used to just have to work hard and by the rules made. Now you got to work smart. And I think he was pointing out that the income, I think the last 20 years, the real income has not risen for industrial workers. Right. And what's happened, the wife or spouse has gone to work to make up the gap. And then he raised the question, that gap's still there, what's going to happen next? Child labor? What's your prediction on what's going to happen?
Well, I think there's a couple disturbing things that are happening. One of the small steps we could take, incidentally, is increase the minimum wage. But I just completed serving on what they call the Dunlop Commission. It was the formally titled the Commission on the Future of Labor Management Relations.
That's the one where you were the minority?
Yeah.
Well, yes, tell me about that.
In any case, one of the set of statistics we come up with, which is very, very disturbing, is that this is 1993 figures, and that 18% of the full-time workers in America, now full-time is described as 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, less or at $13,193, below the poverty level. Now, I'm not suggesting that all those people were in poverty because it might be the second income, but that's absolutely disgraceful that 18% of the full-time workers work at that miserable wage. Now, the other revealing statistic, 2 other revealing statistics, that has increased by 50%, that cohort, since 1979. It was only 12% of the workforce in 1979, and now it's grown, which it goes to this whole business of the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. In addition to that, we looked at Europe. Of all the European countries, and that doesn't happen in Europe. There isn't this massive gap between the lowest 10% and the median. And in Europe, it's only 35%. In the United States, it's 68%. Yeah. So there's things happening in the American economy, and have been happening in the last 15 years, that results in working people now. I'm not talking about people that aren't working. I'm talking about working people are getting poorer and poorer and have a lower and lower standard of living.
I'd heard this show, what you're showing that, well, going back to the New Deal period, we had this kind of gap, but we were narrowing the gap.
Right.
And now that gap is widening. Is
right.
that what your study showed? Yeah. So that you say the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Yeah.
I noticed there you had the Wall Street Journal. Do you want to show us that headline?
Well, this will contribute to what we're talking about. Tax bill could meet a mean a windfall for the well-off. And it shows that under the tax bill that passed the House of Representatives, the rich will get richer, and the poor, well, maybe not won't get poorer, they won't get any richer. As I recall the figures, if you earn $200,000 a year, you'll get an effective tax reduction of $11,240. If you earn $30,000 a year, it'll be $134. So instead of, I believe, when the president has recommended a $500 tax deduction for people, for each child in the family. And it should be applied to everybody who earns up to $95,000 a year. The Republicans incorporate that, among other things, in their legislation, except the cutoff is $200,000 a year. So the tax bill is very regressive. I think compounds the problem that we're talking about. My personal feeling is that the United States Senate, although it's controlled by Republicans, won't go this far. And if they do, the president's going to veto it.
Now, you tell a little bit more about the Dunlap Commission that you were on, what the majority was, how it was appointed, and what your minority report was.
Well, the commission was appointed in May of 1993 by Secretary Reich and the president. And it was chaired by John Dunlap, who was Secretary of Labor in the Ford administration. And we had Ray Marshall, who was Secretary of Labor in the Carter administration. Bill Usry, who was Secretary of Labor in the Nixon administration. Former Secretary of Commerce Wyndham Krebs, 4 academics. Paul Allaire was CEO of Xerox, and myself. And we had 3 mandates. One, what should be done, if anything, to change the law to enhance labor management cooperation, what should be done to reduce delay and conflict in labor management relations, and a third one went to the question of regulations. My dissent took place because I am fearful the majority point of view is going to open the door to return of company unionism, which was barred by the old Wagner Act of 1935. That was my principal objection, and I wrote my dissent basically on that point. Now, Tom, the irony of this is that I feel I've wasted 18 months of my life, and I haven't got too many 18 months to waste. Because, there's no question that the favorable, and there were some positive, favorable recommendations that the commission made that will help unions organize and give workers a greater measure of justice, but they won't see the light of day. Not with this Congress. There's just no chance.
Yeah. Now, what do you see? We talked about it earlier, the matter that we shifted from agricultural employment to manufacturing, and now we're shifting to something else. What is the future? Say, fellows, at the Ford plant or Dodge Main, we know is no longer in existence.
Well, I think what you're going to see, if you want to talk about autos specifically, you're going to see a continuing decline in employment, but at a much slower rate than you saw in the past. From 80 forward, it was radical change. Now it's sort of settled down. You're going to see diminishing numbers because of automation and new technology. Fewer workers are going to be able to produce more cars. I don't think, Tom, you're going to see massive layoffs any longer. First of all, the union has negotiated wonderful income protection for the workers. And so it is in steel. In steel, nearly every contract has a guarantee against any layoffs. You reduce the workforce, which is anticipated in steel also, by attrition. So it's going to be, the reduction is going to be more civil than it has been. It won't have that economic wrenching it had in the past.